Hey, what's up? And welcome to QnA, the show where I take your questions from YouTube and Twitter and answer them here in video format. A lot of questions to get into. I'm hoping this episode of Q&A won't be outdated immediately because some news breaks while this is getting uploaded. But, this is the world we live in, right? So we're just going to start with the first question. It goes, due to the Grant injury, should the Browns consider signing a free agent, special team specialist, or maybe trade for a player with a similar skill set? Just don't think we have the guy on the team that can fill that spot. Do we have somebody who could be as good as Jakeem Grant projected to be at kick return? No. Do you have somebody who you're ultimately going to throw back there to return kicks and punts? Yeah. Look, this isn't seen as a critical position. Kick return, punt return, it just isn't seen as a critical position. Every NFL team on a roster of 53 players, I don't care who's the GM, I don't care how incompetent they are, every NFL team has somebody who can field punts and kicks. They might not be great at it, but they can field them, right? Like, that's all you really are required to have is somebody who can field them. And I'm not saying like, oh, just technically catch it. Like, think about the impact the punt returner and kick returner has. Like, yeah, there's the memories of Josh Cribbs. Rules are different now for kickoff, so the impact he would have in this era would be greatly diminished, one. But two, unless you got Josh Cribbs or Devin Hester, does it really matter who your kick returner is? I get it. People are looking for any reason to upgrade the wide receiver position, but I just don't think a Jakeem Grant injury is going to be the catalyst to make that happen, given that I just don't think they think that role was that important. And ultimately, they have guys who can return kicks. They have guys who can return punts and have done it before. I don't think they're going to be scrambling to find replacements for that, unless like both Donovan Peoples-Jones and Demetric Felton look all time awful in the preseason trying to return punts and kicks. But that's the only scenario in which I would see that. And I don't think Donovan Peoples-Jones is taking stepping back there at all. I think it's just going to be Dearness and maybe another running back, maybe Jerome Ford going to return some kicks and punts. We'll see. Next question comes from Mark R., who says, do you believe the Browns should continue the streak or will continue the streak of losing the first week of the season? Is the man who woke up feeling dangerous someone to fear? If the Browns lose to the Panthers, let me put this carefully so I don't enrage people in the comment section. If the Browns lose to the Panthers in week one, that's within the range of outcomes that aren't like ridiculous, given that, we know who's going to be quarterback of that game. We know some of the circumstances heading into it. Like, it wouldn't be crazy. Would it be all Baker Mayfield? It depends on how that game pans out. But given how Carolina is structured, would probably require a bigger game from Christian McCaffrey or something like that, right? Losing is always an option in the NFL. I don't want to act like it's not. But the Browns will probably be favored in that matchup. And the Browns, in all likelihood, I know it's a road game to start the year, and the Browns don't ever win those games to start the year. But the Browns, on all accounts, can and maybe even should win that game, depending on how healthy they are going into week one. But, as far as Baker Mayfield, is he someone to fear? I'll put it like this. I don't stay up at night worrying about it, right? Like, I consider Baker Mayfield in the class of quarterbacks to where, they're there. They can most certainly have a good game, but the game plan isn't going to be centered around, oh my God, what are we going to do with Baker Mayfield, right? I reserve that energy for Lamar Jackson. I reserve that energy for Joe Burrow. I reserve that energy for Patrick Mahomes, really, really good quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield has not been that ever. So, and I'm not going to be worried about what he's going to put there. He could have a good game. It's possible. He could also have a bad game. But I don't think the Browns' week one ability to win really hinges on much of Carolina does. It's going to be about the Browns and if they're going to be able to put together a strong enough offensive performance to be able to win games consistently this year? That's a big question about the Browns without Watson. Next question comes from Justin, who says, who's a player that was on a roster last year that made a significant impact that you're not sure will make the 53-man cut down? I don't know, man. Yeah, there's nobody like that this year. Let me go through the list. Offense, no, nobody really. Everybody got cut from wide receiver before the season started. And then offensive line, you're not getting rid of anybody that hasn't already been getting rid of. I mean, maybe you can say Kareem Hunt if he gets traded, but that's not making the 53-man cut down. Like, he's going to make if he's on the roster at the end of the year or at the end of the training camp, and the Browns plan to, not trade him, he's going to make the roster. Like, there's no threat of that. So even that one I would throw out. Defensively, is there anybody who was impactful? I mean, like MJ Stewart would have been a candidate, but he's not even on the team anymore. Nah, man, there's really nobody who was an impact player or had a little bit of an impact that's going to not make the 53-man this year. I mean, the roster really wasn't overhauled. So there's not anybody that I can see from there that would be in that kind of a situation. But thank you for the question. We're going to talk about the next question here, which is from KB. I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce that. I don't want to mispronounce that and disrespect nobody by accident. So I'm going to just let that ride. Do you think that we should trade Kareem Hunt for a wide receiver? And also, is picking up Antonio Brown? Dog, you want Antonio Brown on this team? We're going to cap off our problems at Deshaun Watson. Right? I defend when people get all incredulous about like a Cam Newton. They act like Cam Newton's a locker room cancer when he's never been. So like, I'm not opposed to a personality, but Antonio Brown is a bit more than a personality. Antonio Brown was last seen on the NFL screen shirtless, walking off the field. Nah, dog. I'm good on that. Like that's the stuff that like we don't need, right? For a team that had locker room issues last year, I would think that they're probably going to do their best to limit players who have been known previous locker room malcontents. You can say all you want about Deshaun Watson's situation off the field, and it is warranted, but all of that stuff is off the field. He's never been a locker room malcontent, right? They're not bringing in locker room malcontents, people who have been proven to be locker room malcontents. That's what Antonio Brown is, right? And honestly, in the NFL, that's a quicker way to get out the league than to be alleged to be a terrible person off the field, is if you're a locker room malcontent, right? Conman916 says, would you rather have Jacoby Brissett or any current Steelers quarterback for a season? I would rather have Jacoby Brissett. I honestly would. Just because I know that he's not going to turn the ball over as much as like a Mitchell Trubisky. That's just what I care about. For this offense, for this team, I just don't want the turnovers. I think if you don't have the turnovers, you can win a lot of games, but you just can't have the turnovers. If the offense moves too slow to have turnovers. Field goals, fine, right? A couple 3-and-outs, all right. Not going to be fun to watch, but all right. But turnovers, can't have them. Can't live with it. This team's going to have to play some boring-ass football, by the way. Like, I hope y'all understand. This is not going to be super exciting to watch. There's going to be a lot of field position, a lot of punting, a lot of game managing, right? No matter who's the quarterback is for the first 8 weeks of the season especially. There's going to be a rather, strategic offense, I would call it, right? They're going to try to squeeze these games out. And that's what they're going to have to do. Next question comes from Kyle, who says, did you see the report of Deshaun Watson being agreeable to the 8-game suspension, $5 million fine if the NFL gives him more than that? It looks like we're heading for a long quarter battle. Yeah, so this is the perspective I got out of it after thinking about this for a while, because I think the reaction to this was, that's wishful thinking by Deshaun Watson, that that's what he would agree to. But I think this was a more or less the NFLPA and either the NFLPA or Deshaun Watson's camp drawing their line in the sand saying, hey, anything above 8, we're going to fight. I don't know if that's a sound strategy, and it seems like the money is a bigger sticking point for the Watson camp. I don't know, we don't know the player's finances, but he has paid out a considerable amount of money over the past year, and he hasn't played a ton of football. So, I don't know how much money he actually has. I know he got that big signing bonus, and I know his contract's guaranteed, but that doesn't mean they give it all to you on day one, right? So, I don't know how much liquid money he actually has right now, and that's why he's not trying to have a gigantic fine. But, the 8-game, $5 million fine thing is more or less him putting his line in the sand. If, hey, anything over this, we're going to go to federal court. So, it's basically 8 games. The way I'm reading this, and I could be wrong on this because, again, I am not a lawyer. I don't know what the hell is going on with this process. So don't come bad at me if this is not what happens. But I think what's probably going down here is that, the NFLPA is saying anything more than 8 games, we're going to court. So it's 8 games or all. You know what I mean? I guess we're going to find out, right? I guess we're going to find out. It's either going to be 8 games or this thing's going to go into federal court. And who knows how long that takes? Who knows if he even gets the TRO to play in week 7? Who knows, right? And this is just what I will say to everybody who's been following this. Understand that this thing is going to be a process and it is going to take a very long time. Even if he gets suspended for a year tomorrow and they don't take it to court, you still have to see if he gets reinstated, right? That's not 100% a guarantee, even though it's very likely, right? This situation is not going anywhere anytime soon. I hope it doesn't add more layers than what's already out there. And it's about time we started to accept that, right? When we traded for Deshaun Watson, when the Browns traded for Deshaun Watson, a lot of us were thinking, hey, man, he gets suspended. This gets behind us. He gets to play football. Everybody's going to forget, but it's going to take a while for that first part to happen. I think we all underestimated how long this situation was going to take. And I think it's about time we start accepting that we don't know how long this is going to take. So I'm putting this whole thing on the back burner, right? Until I know more. Jacoby Brissett's the quarterback of this team as it stands for week 1 through 6. Once week 7 comes around, we'll see what that situation is. But all I can do right now is prepare for what I know as far as content. And what I know right now is that Deshaun Watson is absolutely not playing the first 6 weeks of the season. So we'll check back in week 7 or whenever they announce something official. We'll check back in periodically with that. But I mean, this is just what the situation is. It's not great, but I mean, the Browns weren't in a great situation at quarterback even before they traded for Deshaun Watson. So, it's kind of pick your poison. So the next question is from Aaron, who says, how much value do you think the $40+ million in roller cap is compared to getting Jimmy Garoppolo for a year? That depends, right? Because if Jimmy Garoppolo, here's the part that people haven't talked about. If Jimmy Garoppolo is brought in, it's really only in a scenario in which I don't believe this whole thing that the Browns would bring in Jimmy Garoppolo if the suspension is like 12 games. I don't buy it. I don't buy that at all. I do buy if it is a whole season suspension that they would consider it. Here's why. Deshaun Watson's money cap number gets pushed back, as far as I know, for a year. So it would be $10 or $8 million this year against the cap, and it would be $10 million next year against the cap, and then the contract kicks in. So the rollover money, what they were saving that rollover money was to kind of eat a lot of that Deshaun Watson cap hit, so they're not going to be over the cap next year. But if you're going to pretty much know that that's going to be after next year anyways, like he's going to be suspended for the whole year and he's not going to toll the season, then you might as well, not might as well, you would be more likely to feel free with that rollover cap. I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo's worth it. I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo makes your team any better than Jacoby Brissett does. I understand this is an unpopular opinion. Everybody seems to be riding the Jimmy G train. I've made my argument with numbers enough about Jimmy Garoppolo over this summer. I've had a video out. Go search for it. It's Baker Mayfield is definitely better than Jimmy Garoppolo. And y'all know how I felt about Baker Mayfield this summer. So I'm not a big fan of him. I have gobs of numbers to point at that. And at this point, people are so set in their ways about what they feel about Jimmy Garoppolo that nothing I say is going to change anybody's mind. The only thing that's going to change people's mind is that Jimmy Garoppolo's playing on the field. And that's just what I'm waiting for at this point, right? Like, people are going to, I don't think it's an upgrade at all, but Jimmy Garoppolo's going to play for somebody next year. And we'll see, right? And the excuses will obviously be there if he plays bad, but we'll see. I think he's a lemon. I think he's not even starting quality quarterback anymore. And let's not forget, he's had shoulder surgery on his throwing arm. We pretty much put Cam out of contention for playing in the NFL anymore after that shoulder surgery. I don't know why we're not looking at Jimmy G in the same light. But that's another conversation for another day. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of Jimmy Garoppolo at this point of his career, especially. I don't think he's an upgrade, but I understand why people do. I have numbers to back up my argument. Most of the people who don't agree with me tend to go to win-loss record and stuff like that. Not really sound arguments, but again, the only thing that's going to change people's mind at this point about Jimmy Garoppolo is seeing him play on the field, and I'm confident that he's gonna prove the numbers right on that stance. Anthony with a question that says, do you think this season is a wash? I have a better question. What the hell is a wash, right? I've heard this before. What is a wash? What is a wash meaningless season? Like, what does that even mean? Does that mean the team never plays meaningful football at any point during the year? Does that mean the team doesn't make the playoffs? Or does that mean this team can't contend for a Super Bowl? Like, what does that even mean? What does that mean when people say this season is a wash? As I hear it all the time, but nobody ever elaborates further. What is a wash season? Seriously. I'm not being like facetious or an asshole here. I'm really just trying to get an answer to the question because I hear it all the time. People go, oh, it's going to be a wash season if Deshaun Watson. What does that mean? I still think this team can make the playoffs with a lesser quarterback than Deshaun Watson. I do. But to some people, making the playoffs still would consider it a wash. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what a wash is anymore. Like, what is a lost season? What is punting away a season in somebody's prime? Like, I just don't know what y'all mean by that at this point. So I'm asking y'all for clarity. What is a wash season? If you think this team's going to win like 6 games, I think that's ridiculous, right? If you think this team's not going to be in playoff contention late in the year, I mean, maybe they win a bunch of games and lose late, but who knows? I just don't think this is an obvious wash team. This is not a team that's starting like, obvious wash team to me, just so you know where I'm coming from, is like when the Browns were throwing out Colt McCoy for all them years. You know what I mean? Colt McCoy and nobody good around him. And the defense stunk and the offense was terrible. You know, those are wash years where you just walked into the season knowing you probably winning 4 to 6 games. This is not 4 to 6 games. So I don't know how it's considered a wash, right? Like, that's what I would consider a wash, is a year where you would have a top 10 draft pick, but you traded it away, so it's completely pointless. That's a wash. But if you almost make the playoffs or make the playoffs, not a wash. Not a wash to me, but, maybe the culture's changing on that sense. But no. But that's it for Q&A. Y'all have a great day. Have a good night.